We think about and talk about all the ways in which AI could impact voiceover one day, and maybe some of the ways that it already has. But AI is going to impact so much more than just what goes on in the booth. And so we need to be thinking about that too. My guest today is a successful voice actor who also happens to be an SEO expert. And she's going to help us understand how AI is going to affect the way we think about SEO. Welcome back to the show, Gina Scarpa.
Yay, thank you. I'm so excited to be back. And we're talking about one of my favorite topics.
You fall into a very small and elite category of voice actors who have been on the podcast more than one time.
I feel very honored. And I was thinking today, like you don't just bring anybody on, even being part of the 12 days, like I feel like I'm part of an elite circle. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, look, I always thought that you're pretty cool from the first time that I had a conversation with you. But
Same.
when I was researching for this interview, I discovered something that made me think that, like, wow, she's even cooler than I thought.
What is this? I'm so curious now.
I want to hear about meeting Robert Irvine.
Oh my gosh. Well, wait. So prior to voiceover, I was in radio for 10 years, but after radio, I went into entertainment reporting and I ended up fully leaning into reality TV. So I interviewed people from every reality show you could think of, but one of those categories was everything on the Food Network. So when there were food events in the area, I would get to go and interview people. And Robert Irvine is actually so nice. There were other people I got to, Bobby Flay and some other people, but Robert Irvine gets like a 10 out of 10 as a human being.
I
Super nice,
always
down to
thought
earth.
that about him.
He really is. I mean, you meet some people, like that are celebrities or that were on TV or musicians or whatever. I would meet them over the years and some of them would like really bum me out because I'm like, I liked you and you're kind of being a jerk. But he was one of the nicest people I've ever met. Truly. So cool. Following each other on Twitter. He would like answer me. He was just very regular, which I really appreciated. He was super nice. I'm glad that you appreciate Robert Irvine.
Oh my gosh. Restaurant Impossible was a show that I discovered many, many years ago. And just, I got hooked on it. I don't know why, because there's a part of me that when I watch that show, it's like, I feel like I can never eat at a restaurant ever again. Because like when you've kind of had the opportunity to peek behind the curtains of what is actually going on in some of these places, you're like, oh my gosh, that's where my food comes from. But one of my greatest disappointments in life was at I think it was the last WovoCon in Vegas, which took place at the Tropicana.
Yeah.
Robert Irvine was opening a restaurant in the Tropicana, but it wasn't open yet. And so I didn't get to go. And I was very bummed about that because like I'd done one of Gordon Ramsay's restaurants in Vegas, and I'd done one of Bobby Flay's. And so I was like, I got to do Robert Irvine's, but it wasn't open yet. And so I missed out on the opportunity. That made me a little bit sad. But
I don't blame you.
I think it's really cool. Like of all the random people, like I think it's really cool that you had met Robert Irvine.
I've met so many people. This is funny to single him out, but he really is like a top tier human being.
I know there's so many people that are like, who is Robert Irvine? Just look him up.
You know what? We're going to boost. This is all part of the episode. We're boosting his search.
We're boosting him. Yeah. Like, come on. Restaurant Impossible. That show's been on the air forever.
Forever. It's a great show.
It really is a great show. Okay. So there's this new technology out there that the kids are talking about, this AI thing. Have you heard of it?
Just a bit. I've heard a few voice actors talking about it from time to time.
Just a little bit.
No, just a little bit in the Facebook
comes
group.
up
Just
casually
every now
in
and then.
conversation.
Yeah, once in a blue moon.
So I have noticed that on some of my searches on Google now, the top results are actually from Gemini.
Yes.
Which is Google's AI, which like, come on, Bard. Like who thought that was a good name for the early one? I don't know. I'm glad they rebranded it. But
yeah,
I'm curious, is this the beginning of the end of SEO as we know it?
I don't think it's the beginning of the end, but I do think that it's going to change the way we look at SEO. So for those who, either listen to the first episode that we did together about SEO or maybe, missed it or whatever, just a quick recap. SEO stands for search engine optimization, and its whole purpose is to increase visibility within your organic search results, meaning when you type in a search, you have paid search results that someone paid to have there. And then organic is the work that we put into our website to have it rank well. So what's happening right now on Google is they're starting to show, and you've probably already noticed, AI generated results before we get to the paid results to the shopping results, to the organic results, to the local results, it's showing us the answer. And what they're
Even before the ads.
Even before the ads. Yes,
Which is
correct.
crazy.
And so what it is called zero-click content. And what that means is Google wants to answer the question without you leaving Google, which we see this in other ways too. If you think about, TikTok, which is at the center of so much controversy right now, but TikTok's whole algorithm is meant to keep you on TikTok. It wants you scrolling for an hour. And one thing that Google did earlier was they got rid of page 2, page 3 results, and they introduced endless scrolling because people were viewing page 2 and 3 results as bad, which isn't true, and clicking off. There was like a 70 or 80% drop off rate when people were going to page 2. So now we have zero-click content. And so as an example, I'll just like give an example of where you might find this. So as many people might know, I have an autoimmune liver disease. And so I have to take a medication every day. And sometimes when I need to take a second medication, I like to Google and make sure I'm not going to die. So I'm like, can I
So
take
shit.
these two medications together?
Now, the fact that you trust Google to give you the right
I
answer,
don't
I
know
don't
if
know how I
this, yeah,
feel
I don't know
about
if that's the
that.
right way to do it. Maybe I should consult my pharmacist at CVS or something, or my gastroenterologist. But, sometimes I go to Google to make sure. Just check. And I'll say, can I take this medication with Tylenol? And in the past, it might take me to a website called drugs.com, which is a
Right.
pharmaceutical site that gives you information on different prescriptions or over-the-counter drugs. But what it does now is gives an AI-generated result from Gemini that says, yes, it is safe to take these two things together. And so I got my answer if I don't want to go digging further without ever clicking on anybody else's site. So that's kind of where AI is right now with Google. And that sounds like a bad thing, right? Because they could get the answer to your question without clicking on your site. If we relate it to VoiceOver, I've seen lately when someone searches female medical narration that I come up in AI search results, Maria Pendolino, Debbie Irwin, people that are obviously Kim Handysides, people
Yep.
that are really, known for doing this. And so they don't need to go on our website. I mean, they probably should because you think they want to listen to our demos, but technically they could just write our names down and come back to it later or something like that. And it even has our pictures, blurbs about us, and that's all being pulled from Gemini.
It's interesting because this is why I sold my Google stock a year ago, because on one hand, I understand totally what's going on here. On the other hand, Google is an advertising company as much as anything, right? Like that's where so much of its revenue is generated is from its ads. And if you're
Absolutely.
giving people the answers to all of their questions
Mhm.
immediately,
Right.
right at the top of the page, and there's no reason for you to click or scroll or anything, how are
Right.
you supposed to sell them more ads? And so I've that, which is not my problem at this point, but it's an interesting approach that it feels like they're almost cannibalizing themselves.
That's what's interesting about whether or not Google will be punishing AI content, because if they punish it too hard on Google search results, they hurt themselves because of Gemini.
Yeah.
So they have to be very careful about the provisions and the things that they're putting into place to like limit what from ChatGPT or whatever would do well and what wouldn't, because Gemini is such a major player in what Google is doing.
Is it fair to say at this point that the Gemini results tend to be more answers to questions?
Yes.
So if you were to type in, how do I become a voice actor? You
Mhm.
might get a Gemini result. Whereas if you were to type in British female voiceover, because that's not specifically a question that can be answered
Mhm.
necessarily. It seems like, because I'm not seeing these results on every single page. So it seems like if you're doing more of a keyword type search,
Mhm.
you're still going to get regular Google results and be able to click through. But if you're asking a specific question, it tends to be that those are the ones that we see the Gemini results from. So if
Yeah.
that's the case, for now anyway, we still need to keep keywording in mind from an
Yeah.
SEO standpoint.
Absolutely. I mean, in the case of searching female medical narration and getting the AI results, I wasn't asking a question. I was just typing it in and it happened to come up. However, that to me, if I was casting for a pharmaceutical campaign, would not be enough to answer the question.
Sure.
Like, okay, you gave me my name, Maria's, Debbie's, and Kim's. Like, okay, what do you, I have to keep looking. Like, I
Yep.
need to listen or contact you. So in our case, they still need to do more actions. But in other cases, they don't need to. So one of the best performing blogs on my website is the best voiceover colleges and universities. And so that is answered through AI, and there's a place where we can generate some authority is through blog writing. So we still need to do keywords. We still need to write content. So people are like, no, whenever I meet with
It's
people
not
and
the
I
answer
say,
we were looking
guess
for.
what? You got to write 300 to 500 words at least. I sound like your English teacher. To get things ranking well in Google, it needs to be structured a certain way. And so even though basically in Google's terms, they don't inherently say, no, you can't use AI generated content. But what you can't do is, or what you shouldn't do is just go into ChatGPT and say, hey, write me a page about e-learning and I'm going to slap it up on my website, because it still needs to be relevant. It still needs to be personalized. It still needs to answer questions, and it can't feel like kind of low-hanging fruit, low effort content that was just slapped up on your website to rank in Google. That is not what they want you to do. So there's a lot of different ways that Google decides what's going to rank up at the top, and keywords and content is a big piece of it, but it's only a piece of it.
I think it's important that we reiterate the point that you just made. I'm using ChatGPT a ton. Somebody that was in my mastermind group last year talked me into signing up for the paid ChatGPT, and I have actually renamed it Jarvis, and we converse on a daily basis now.
He's my best friend.
Yeah, my wife's like, you talk to Jarvis more than you talk to me.
Yeah,
Jarvis helps make me money. What am I going to tell you?
Jarvis would never say that, actually.
But I have never used anything that it gave me directly. Like, I've never copied and pasted anything.
No.
And I'm not just talking about a blog, although I don't know that I've ever used it to write a blog, but like, I get it to help me with podcast show notes and descriptions and YouTube descriptions and writing posts for social media and writing emails and all these different things. Like, I'm using it. I've said before, I use it more as a brainstorming buddy, but I certainly do not copy and paste anything.
No, nor should
it'll
you.
give me an idea, or it'll give me a theme, or it'll point me in a direction, but I want to make sure that it ultimately is coming out in my voice. And I think that's important, so that it comes out in my voice, but also the fact that you can potentially get punished by some of these search engines and different platforms for, if it suspects that your content is AI generated or whatever, that actually will downplay. And so that's something you need to be aware of. That, you can't just go and get ChatGPT to write you 100 blog posts and dump those 100 blog posts on your website and be like, okay, now we're good to go. Like, those are going to have to be
human generated. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like all voice actors are ever talking about is the concern that AI will replace them. I think it's an amazing thing that algorithms are favoring human generated content. That's fantastic news, because that to me is an easy place where they could boost, ChatGPT type content and put it up there. But, so it is punishing those types of content that's being used to what they would say is manipulating search, and it's not going to index those pages or rank them, meaning when the bots crawl your website, if it detects that this is like 100% ChatGPT, there's a chance, and maybe not a bad chance, a good chance, that they're not going to index it, meaning I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to pretend like that page doesn't even exist. Maybe not your whole website, but certain pages. And when you think about SEO, you can only rank for 2 to 3 keywords per page. So if you think about all the genres we do, it's not possible for us to rank for every single genre and every keyword on a one-page website. So when you've built a 20, 30, 40-page website, like, we cannot afford to have 10 of those not ranking because we didn't want to take the time to write it. Like, if you want your site to rank well in Google, you can definitely use ChatGPT or something similar as a tool, like you're saying, but it can't do everything for you. So some things it could do are, it could help generate some keyword ideas. It could look at your content and you could say, here's what I wrote, here are the keywords I'm targeting. Where could I add in more keywords, or what do you feel I'm missing? Something like that.
Yep.
It can write the content initially if you want it to, and then I'm like rolling my eyes, and you could go back in and, kind of edit it and put it more in your voice. It can.
As a writer who has previously, written about Robert Irvine, I can understand why having
dare
the
you?
AI
I wrote those articles.
Your sensibilities. Yeah.
I wrote those articles about Robert Irvine myself.
There was no ChatGPT.
Yeah, no.
I had to use a freaking typewriter.
You can you back in my day, okay? Oh my goodness. Well, you can have it summarize your content too, which is sort of what you're doing, what you might do with show notes. Summarize your content.
Yeah.
You can ask it to improve the clarity of your content. So, it's like you've been saying about AI, and I've been, of course, besides, paying attention to everything you say on Facebook, I listen to the podcast and have listened to many things you've said about AI. It's a tool, and it can be a
Cool.
very useful tool. But we will still be, in 2025 at least, we'll still be doing the work to get our websites to rank well. And it is such a massive opportunity. Like, I literally can't yell about it enough. And I feel like people just don't put the time into their website like they should. And they get, of course, you should be marketing and you should be auditioning, but they get bogged down with like other silly things that don't really move them forward. And this is something that has very long lasting impact when you're doing well on Google, for sure.
I think about the fact that you're still saving time, right? Because if you're doing nothing right now,
Mhm.
then obviously you're getting the results of that nothing. If you can have ChatGPT take you even 50% of the way,
Mhm.
then you're still maximizing your time and productivity by taking advantage of the tool like that. Then you just go through and tweak it and finish it off and make it sound like it's coming from your distinct voice. Something you said that I made a note of was the targeted keywords thing, and I think we should probably touch on that a little
Mhm.
bit because I suspect that there are people who are trying to throw all the SEO
Mhm.
into like 1 or 2 pages, right? Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
you build your voiceover page and you mention every single genre and you try to mention every keyword for every single
Yeah.
genre, and you're saying, "No, no, 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 that's not
No,
gonna work."
no. Right, because the message that we're told in voiceover, I feel, is that you should have a one-page website with your downloadable demos and your contact info at the top, and that's true. It's great, I think, early on, but as you're growing in your career, you start getting more demos, you start having bigger projects. You can build out pages for each of those genres that you
Yeah.
do. And I always tell people, you don't need to have a huge I'm just being honest. You don't need to have a huge body of work to build an e-learning page. You can have your e-learning demo that, JMC or whoever did, and you can have an example, if even, and you can start if you have one thing to show, we can start building that page, and then you can just be adding on to it as you go. And I feel like people are often waiting for permission to make a page in a specific genre, but Google takes time. So why wouldn't you start building it now and have just, a little bit to show? And then as time goes on, you're just adding more and more. So for me, I built all my genre pages maybe 2 years ago. And now what I'm doing is going super niche and building niche pages like female sports announcer, which I actually just booked one this morning off of that type of demo and that type of content. I have a page that's just for casinos and gambling, one that's just for colleges and universities, one that's just for streaming audio ads, and that is super powerful in the world of marketing, which is your whole thing. Is email, is direct marketing, is LinkedIn outreach. Like, when I can reach out to a casino and say, here's my casinos and
Yep.
gambling page, it's so much more powerful than like, here's my commercial page where I did John Deere, Cinnabon, and Xfinity. It's like, okay, but like that's not what I really do. So
Yep.
they don't need to guess. So building those pages is, I like cannot speak enough about how powerful they are in so many ways.
And Google doesn't care if your e-learning page consists of samples of your e-learning work and
No.
and e-learning demo, like it doesn't register half that content anyway, right? So it
No, yeah.
actually, like, if you literally put your e-learning demo and a bunch of written words with appropriate keywords or
Mhm.
whatever, like that's ultimately what's going to get you ranked anyways. I'm
Yeah.
curious, I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, but there's obviously, we're talking about Google specifically because Google is what we use for search and Gemini is Google's AI, which they're now incorporating. But
Mhm.
there's ChatGPT, there's Claude, there's Perplexity, there's a lot of other AI tools that are out there. I've noticed recently with ChatGPT that I'm able to ask it for sources and it's giving me links now, which it never used to do. It never
No,
used
it
to be able
didn't.
to link out.
Mhm.
So now I can ask it questions and it will cite sources and link to websites. Perplexity is, if I understand correctly, is basically an AI search engine.
Mhm.
Are there things that we can do on our sites that would make
Mm.
Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity look at our site over someone else's? Or how do I, if I start asking it questions about, documentary voiceover or whatever, how do I make it so that it would link to my site as a source? Is there anything we can do, or is that from how we rank in Google, or like
Yes.
we're okay?
Yeah, it's going to pull from that. So one thing that is important to think about when you're trying to get your site to rank well is the acronym EAT, which is expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. And another way to think about it is building your like, know, and trust factor. So in order to be pulled for those types of things, whether that's Gemini, ChatGPT, or whatever, you really it's tricky because you want to be establishing yourself as an authority in the industry, but I feel like sometimes voice actors struggle with what to talk about, even on social media. So they're like giving everyone advice, but like they're just getting started. You know what I mean? And they're not really sure what to talk about. So I feel like, that to me is something that can come with time, because you might be writing blog articles, you might be cited in something like Reddit, which, by the way, Google is really highlighting Reddit in their search results
It
because
is
it's
always at the
so
top of
so
almost
much.
any
But
search that you do,
especially I've
which is
noticed
really
in I
entertaining
don't more
sometimes.
more than in the past, for sure. They're favoring user generated content, but I did a Reddit search on myself just to make sure people were being nice, and they were. I was like, I have to know, because Reddit is
There's a lot of
notoriously
crazy stuff going
brutal.
on
Yeah, but
Reddit,
they were
and
actually nice. People were like, "Oh, I coached with Gina. She was great." I was like, "Yay, Reddit."
when I see Reddit stuff come up at the top of the search results, there's certain searches where I'm like, okay, this makes sense. There's other searches where I'm like, really, you're going to point me to Reddit as the most reliable source of
Yeah, but
information?
Google really likes Reddit because it's user generated content, and they
Yep,
like crowdsourcing information from
yep,
people. But
yep.
back to, showing up in something like, Chat GPT results. I f- I feel like that's something that's been a little bit more recent. Like you were saying, suddenly there's links popping up and things like that. And I was even trying to use it just before we were meeting, yesterday and over the weekend. Like I was trying to ask it questions like, pretend you're a casting director and you're looking to hire someone for your next medical narration, and you work for a pharmaceutical company and blah blah blah. Like, who would you reach out to? And it was like Tara Strong. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to like Tara Strong. I'm not going to Tara Strong. Like, I mean, maybe, but she's like, the queen of voiceover, and she's, Harley Quinn, and she's Timmy Turner from Fairly Odd Parents. Like, I highly doubt she's going to do this. So it was pulling like just random things that I didn't feel were totally relevant. I don't think we're quite there yet, but the fact that ChatGPT has moved as fast as it has, I think means that we want to be prepared for showing up in those things. So definitely
100%.
establishing that, that authority and that expertise from the content that you're writing on your pages to, if you're going to write blog articles, to being cited by other sources, because backlinking to your website from other trusted sources is one of the best ways to rank at the top of Google. Like I said earlier, the content is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Now you want other people linking to your site, and that's going to build a lot of authority as well, not just with Google, but beyond as well, whether that's literally like Bing and DuckDuckGo or ChatGPT and the like.
The fact that it's giving me links now. ChatGPT is giving me links now. Like I'm really because I use it every day now,
Yeah.
almost every day.
Mhm.
I'm noticing much more how quickly it seems to be advancing. And like one of
I'm
the things that I
scared.
was always afraid of with using content from it was there was so much talk of hallucinations in the early days, right?
Yeah.
And how do you verify this stuff? And I'm like,
Mm.
if I'm going to do a search on ChatGPT and it's going to give me a bunch of answers, and then I got to go and redo that search anyway to try to verify it all, then it didn't actually save me any
Yeah.
time. But now the fact that I can ask it for sources and it
Mhm.
will link me directly. And so then I can go and just click a link and just double check, yes, that statistic is correct, or that fact or whatever. That's huge. That makes a big difference. And so like I don't know. I've been saying it for so long. People are tired of hearing it, but like it's not an if or a when with AI. Like it's
Yeah.
here. It's
Yeah.
now. It's
100%.
happening. And so how do we embrace that, whether that's using the tools to make us more productive or optimize what we're doing in order to be able to take advantage of these tools so that when they're directing people to us. And so these are the sorts of things that we need to be thinking about, and the questions that we need to be asking. So we could go on ChatGPT and we could ask it to give us the framework for a blog post, for
Mhm.
example, which is
Yes.
great. But before we can even get there, we've got to figure out our keywords.
Right.
How do we figure out how do we figure out what people are searching for? Because everybody's going to be competing for, I don't know, American female voice actor,
Oh my
or
gosh, yeah.
English female voice actor, or
Yeah.
British male voice actor, or whatever,
Mhm.
right? Nobody's competing for Canadian male voice actor because then there's only like 12 of us,
Great. You
but
should rank
still,
number 1
yeah.
then.
But that's the hardest part, I think, is trying to figure out what are the right keywords to go after. And especially when you tell me I can only do 2 or 3 keywords per page, I'm like, well, frig, Gina, like, how am I supposed to know which 2 to target when there's 75 that I could possibly choose from? So what
True.
can we just go to ChatGPT and just say,
You
hey,
could
tell us what
go to Chat.
keywords?
Yes, you could go to ChatGPT. You can use, Google Keyword Planner. You can use a site called SEMrush, which is SEM Rush, Moz, which is MOZ. There's a lot of different tools to help you find keywords. And when you think about wanting to rank for those keywords, like people want to rank for like male voiceover, right? Or like, female voice actor. It's like you are pushing, really hard
You're
against the
competing
internet.
against voices.com and Voice123 and their $1 million Google ad budgets. And you're
Voices,
just not going to do it.
every site has an authority score from Google, meaning, how, your expertise, your authority, your trustworthiness, and Voices is through the roof. So you're fighting. However, I do and other people do outrank them on several things, which is actually kind of surprising. It's not like they're always going to show up first. So, a good example is like when you search something like maybe female political voice, you should hopefully find me up at the top, Maria Pendolino, and some other people as well. And we're ranking above Voices. But anyway, when you're thinking about the keywords that you want to use, search cares about search intent. That is becoming more and more important every day. So it cares about user engagement, like did you click on the link? Did you stay on the site? And then the quality of your content. But since we're talking about keywords, we'll talk about search intent. So there's 2 types of keywords. There's short tail and long tail keywords. Short tail is just a word or two, voiceover, voice actor. It's super broad. I don't know what you're looking for, and it's going to be incredibly hard to rank for. So oftentimes what you want to do, of course, you want to mix those in. You don't want to never say those, but we're looking at long tail keywords, which are 4, 5, 10 words long that tell Google exactly what you're looking for. So the example that I give when I do my SEO workshop is there's a big difference between typing in Google living room furniture and living room furniture for a small apartment. That's a totally different, you're going to get completely different results there. It might be like Disney, that's my search, short tail, or Disney World on a budget for a family of 4.
Right.
Completely different, right? So that feels very long, but it might be like the difference between voiceover and hire a professional female voiceover artist. Okay, and you're like, how do I work that? If you're looking to hire a professional female voiceover artist, consider reaching out to Gina, who has experience in commercial, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I just worked it into a sentence that
it's a
is
problem solution
targeting.
equation, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
what are we coming to Google for? We're coming to Google for our problems.
You want an answer.
Right? And how do we use Google, right? You don't go onto Google and type pork chop. You go on to Google and type, what is the safe internal temperature of a pork chop? Or how
Pork
long
chop
should I
recipes
cook
under
a pork
20
chop?
minutes.
Or
Yes.
yeah, right? You don't just type. And so that's part of it then for us is thinking, but see, I still find that a struggle. I'm still like, okay, so if I'm a casting director, or not even casting director, I'm whatever, a video producer, a documentary filmmaker, a company trying to create e-learning content, whatever, like, what is it that I'm going to search? How to I guess that's the thing, right? It's trying to, how do you get inside of their head and think about what is it that they would search? What is the problem
that is hard. You know which one gets me? Corporate narration. I feel like that's a voiceover term. I feel like no one says that but us.
Nobody says corporate narration.
I think we made that up. I'm not going to lie. I just want to just shatter the glass for everyone. I'm pretty sure no one in the casting.
I don't think you're wrong.
I think they say like video narration or, internal, corporate video, but corporate narration, I feel like we made that up. So yeah, definitely trying to think like a casting director or a production company. What would they be searching for? Another thing that you could and should do is if you type something that's kind of, female e-learning narrator, female medical narrator, female e-learning voice is not too broad. It's getting a little bit more specific, but let's say, and I did this when I was building my site, you type that into Google and you see who's ranking well and you go on their site and you control F and you look for the word e-learning and you start being like, okay, I see what you're doing. I mean, you have like any business is looking at their competitors, right? And so I think it's important to see, like, why would they be doing well? It's not just the keywords that are doing well for them. It's the way that they structure their website. So Google does not like a wall of text. It doesn't want paragraphs that are 6 to 8 sentences long like we did when we were in English class in high school. It wants it to be 2 sentences long
Yep.
with a header, and really breaking it down for all of the goldfish minded people with an attention span of 3 seconds. It
Yep.
wants you to be able to kind of scan. So it's a lot of different things. I definitely think doing competitor research is very helpful, because as you read through it, you start to notice, oh, okay, I see, who's doing it the right way. And I start to understand. So it's having those tools. It's thinking like casting and production, and it's competitor research. And then it's trial and error. It's seeing what's working and what's not working. It might be using tools that help then assess your SEO and say, hey, like SEMrush is a great example. You can have a free trial. For free, I think you could track one project. Paid is, pretty expensive. It's like $200 a month or whatever. But I did it for 6 months because I felt like I learned so much during that time. And what it would do is I would put my site in. I would put in my medical narration page and another female in the industry that was doing well. And it would compare and say, hey, she's doing really well for these keywords and you're not using them. Here's another place where AI, is kind of jumping in to read these sites and say, here's what you're missing. So go fix it. So then I went in and fixed it. And now those sites are ranking, those pages are ranking better. So again, it's just another place where a tool comes in that helps you understand what to do. And I
Right.
think that's where we can really be using AI.
I want to kind of just summarize a little bit here, because I think this topic can feel really overwhelming,
Yeah.
right? When you start getting into all of the weeds of it. But ultimately, we're talking about something as simple as determining a couple of keywords
Mhm.
and writing a little bit of content to go along with it.
Yeah.
Like, really, when you break it down,
Yeah, that's it.
right? There's a lot of other moving parts to it. And we're talking about how, this AI chatbot or LLM picks up this, or Google does that, or whatever. But ultimately, it can literally be as simple as,
Mhm.
if you could figure out a couple of keywords
Mhm.
for, start with something that you're really niche in, or a niche that you would really like to target, right?
Yeah.
And where you're not competing for male voiceover or female voiceover, or whatever. Pick a couple of those
Mhm.
niche targeted keywords, write some content around it, get it up on your website. Like, it can be that simple. Is
Yeah.
that
Absolutely. And
fair?
you know what I love about it is, like, I've been working on this. I redid my website maybe 2 to 3 years ago. I started from absolute scratch. I changed the URL, I changed the website entirely, and have built it up to ranking one on several keywords or very close at the top. So it's absolutely something that can be done. And what I like about it is, no matter what's going on in VoiceOver, it's always there for you to be working on. So you can never say that you don't know what to do. There's no excuse to say, I don't know what I should do. I know. Go write some content on your website. Nobody's answering your emails. Nobody's hiring you. Are the pay to plays dead today? Your agents are off. That's fine. You can work on your content even for just a little bit of time. And you really, if you can kind of get down the structure of the pages, you can mess around with the keywords as we go. Like, my sister and I work together. She has a master's degree in English. It's one of the greatest gifts she's ever given me, is her degree in writing. Thank you. And so we're redoing my e-learning page now, because not doing quite as well as I thought. So I used, some AI tools or some, internet tools to identify some keyword gaps. And I said, hey, go back into the content and look and see, where can we work these in. So we're not rewriting anything. We're just kind of editing a bit and saying, hey, let me change these words here and these words there, to try to make it better. And now I am trying to rank for female voiceover artists, because I realize I've ignored that to rank for all the other keywords. So I have been working this just in the last like 3 to 4 days on my homepage and completely redoing it, because it doesn't have a lot of content on it. So Google's kind of like, I don't care about this. And I'm like, well, we're about to care, because I want that homepage ranking well, where my genre pages are doing very well. Yeah, it's just writing content, and if you take 15 to 30 minutes a day, every day, just a little bit, even if you write 2 sections, because each section should be just a couple of sentences, that's fine. But I think it's a lot easier than it feels at times. Like, it kind of feels overwhelming, but so does anything when you don't know how to play the game.
Once upon a time, the rule used to be that in order for Google to really pay attention, or to really give you any love, you needed to have, I think it was 800 words or something like that was like kind of the sweet spot, was 800 words.
Mhm.
Is that still true then?
I do think that it should be more. I mean, I usually tell people when they're starting, I'm like, let's just get 3 to 500 words written. Let's get it going. But I feel that the pages that are doing well do tend to be more in that, like might be 800, even to 1,000 words, which
Okay.
feels like a lot. But if you start talking about the things that you should be talking about on those pages, like what is the genre? What do you bring to the genre? Like, what about your voice and your personality? And I know in voiceover, here's another thing that they always say, don't talk about your voice, right? It's like and I'm like, yeah, but but
But
a
those
lot
are
of
the
casting directors and
keywords.
production companies are like, I'm looking for a warm and caring
Yeah,
voice. I'm
those
looking
are the
for an
keywords.
authoritative male with gravitas. Like, so we want those in there. And then what are the applications of e-learning? It could be, new employee training. It could be, harassment training for employees. It could be for students. So it's like we start breaking down those. Then you do a little FAQ at the end, like how long do you take to deliver voiceovers and what formats do you deliver? But I'm telling you, before you know it, because you have the outline, I feel like it's a lot easier to get to that. Whereas if you think about a paper in high school that you had to write, you were just answering a very broad topic.
Yep.
Like, talk about the implications of, the War of 1812. Like, okay, it's so big. I
Yep.
remember in 8th grade, I don't, why did I pick this? I picked for my term paper for 8th grade, like the fall of the, the fall of the USSR. I was like 12. I was like in the library, like, help, this topic
Easy,
is too
light reading,
broad.
no
Yeah,
problem.
I didn't know what to do. I was like, this is so broad, like, help me. But when you think about these content pages, you're following this structure. And once you have it down, you have a template for all your other pages. So yeah, I actually do think it's a lot easier than people make it out to be. I think people sometimes use it as an excuse because they don't have time. And so they're like, I don't understand it. And it's like, I know, but if you just took like an hour, you would be like, okay, it's really
It's
not
like
as hard as
anything
it seems.
else, right?
Yeah. But it's making the time. It's the same as, when you're saying do the thing. Everyone's got a reason why they're not doing the thing. And you just
So
need to do it.
putting aside, you know, male voice actor or whatever,
Sure.
right? We're going for more targeted niche
Yeah.
keywords.
Hmm.
Realistically, if we do some of this stuff, how
Hmm.
long do you think before we start to see some results?
It depends. I will tell you that female sports announcer page ranked in like 2 weeks. I was honestly shocked. I was like, "Oh my god." Like, it started showing up in Google search results. Sometimes it can take months. Like, you have to submit your site index to Google if you've never done that, which is just an outline of your site so that Google can crawl it and see what's going on there and
Right.
start to rank it. But it can take a couple of months. It can take a couple of weeks. So I always look at that as the long-term plan. And I think we talked about this when I came on the first time, but just to reiterate is, so you build your pages, and in the long term, you're building that credibility and that visibility on Google. And in the short term, once that page is live, you start using it when you direct market. You literally never send people to your homepage. Why? I mean, I guess unless you're submitting to an agent, but if I'm submitting to a production company and I know that they specialize in something, we're going straight to the commercial page. And that to me is like immediate value, where we're speaking the same language and we're demonstrating, our expertise in that genre right off the bat. Like, it's just so worth it. I really can't stress that
I
enough.
think it keeps them from falling down the rabbit hole too, right? If you send them to a page where you've got 30 demos, but only 3 demos are actually relevant to them, right? You run the risk that they lose interest or
They
disengage
just
or
pop,
whatever. And so
yeah.
yeah, and
And
so if
bounce
you
rate is really important too. We don't want people just bouncing off your site either. We want them to stay, and we want to grab their interest from the beginning. So I think that's really important. And, there's some genres that are very specific. Like, a good example is automotive. Like, automotive commercials to me, and from Cliff Zellman himself, automotive commercials are like its own genre. And
yeah,
again, like the commercials that I do, like, they might listen to it, and be like, that's great, but like, sell me a car. So let's send them to the automotive page, and I just feel like there's so much more power there when you're reaching out to people to send them there and link them to that page and then hope that they stick around.
this is a very specific question, which may
Okay.
seem random, but you've built a website,
Yeah.
you've got some SEO love, you've ranked for a couple of keywords or whatever.
Hmm.
But now you want to redo your website. You're going to overhaul your website.
Mm.
Maybe it's time for a new design or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep the rankings that you've already got? Is it like does the content, is it transferable, or are you going to end up having to start over again if you blow up your site, if it changes a bunch of links around? I'm curious how that side of it
Yeah.
works.
No, you do have to be careful when you're going to start running into broken links and things like that. Sometimes people like take down a page, but they forget that it links somewhere else or something like that. That's really important. If you're going to redesign your site, but you're keeping the URL, it should be totally fine. Even if you're like, let's say you're on uh Squarespace or Wix or something like that, which, by the way, those kind of drag and drop website models are not great for ranking in Google. Like, I would just say that besides the fact that you probably want to get a little bit more comfortable with SEO, you also want to get comfortable with WordPress, because WordPress sites or similar things like that tend to do better. But I think that's really important too. If you're starting completely from scratch, you're like, hey, I hate my site, which is what I did. It was like voiceovers by Gina.com, and I was like, no. Because someone had my URL, GinaScarpa.com. Someone else with my name had
How
it, but
dare
they let
they?
it. How dare they let it go? And so I took it immediately and rebuilt
Otherwise, we
the
were going to
site.
call Robert Irvine and we were
We're
going to
gonna
get him
call
to
him up
show
and
up. He's
say,
a big guy. He's very
he's
intimidating if he
very
shows up at your
muscular. Say,
door.
get out
Yes.
there and get
Give
my
Gina her
site.
domain.
Yeah, I got it. I rebuilt the site, and honestly, I built it better. And I was never really ranking before, but that wasn't my focus at the time. Now I feel like that is almost my sole business focus. That and email marketing, I would say. But yeah, I mean, if you're keeping your URL, it should be fine. You just want to watch for broken links. If you're going to scrap the URL and start with something different, yeah, you're starting from
Starting
scratch.
from scratch.
Mhm.
But if you're doing it in the right way, it
Yeah,
sounds like you
it could
can
rank really
actually
fast.
rebuild. And it seems to me that the more targeted your keywords are, the better. Like if you're
Mhm.
going after the broad categories, female e-learning voice, that's going to be a little bit tougher, or might take a little bit longer because there's more people probably competing for that broader keyword. But if you narrowed that down a little bit further, you probably get there a little bit
Yeah.
faster. Right.
The difference between, so what we were saying earlier, male voiceover talent and Canadian male voiceover talent, bilingual male voiceover talent, British male voiceover talent, like you're talking about, a way bigger opportunity. Like, why would someone search that unless they're looking to hire a Canadian voiceover talent? And you want to think about, like, again, why would someone be searching for something, and how can I answer that question? Because Google wants to answer the question as fast as possible. So even if you're someone who writes blog articles, you might think to yourself, well, I answered the question. You did, but you didn't answer it fast. So what you want to do is basically answer the question in the intro and then expound upon it as you're writing. But you want that answer right up top. And I find a lot of like clickbaity articles are still trying to do that, where they're like, I don't know, like, who walked off the set of Stranger Things 5? And you're like, I don't know who. And you like click on the article and you're reading, you're like, oh, like, where is the answer? You just did this, so I would click on your site, and
Yep.
it's like there's never really anything there. And Google's starting to punish. Great, thank you. Like that, we're kind of punishing those clickbaity kind of articles. We want to know the answer as fast as possible, and I think that's a very good thing to keep in mind. So if you look at my website, which is GinaScarpa.com, when you look at my genre pages, everything you need to know is up at the top before the fold, meaning before we scroll. A little intro about me, the demo, an example, my contact info. So we've already answered why someone might come to my page to hire me for something. And then everything below it is like supporting that information and building that visibility and credibility in Google.
I think it's a really valid point. And this is something that I learned with marketing, with writing for emails and different things like that too, was we would have a tendency to create this big long story with this big long buildup.
Yeah.
But we live in a world where we have 3-second attention spans now. And
Yes.
nobody wants a big long story and a big long buildup. So you give them the main points at the start.
Yes.
And then you can tell the story if they want. They'll carry on
Correct.
and go through it. But at the end of the day, what do you care about more? That somebody read your blog post all the way to the end, or
No.
that the blog post that you wrote got you ranked for the keywords that you want to get ranked for? So
Thank
who
you.
gives a flying fart if they made it all the way to the end?
I don't care if you read my site at all. I don't
Yeah.
care even one bit. My sister probably cares because she put a lot of time. We wrote these things together and she's done a lot of the content on my site. She might be sad that no one's reading it, but she understands too. Like, that's not why we're writing it as well. And I think that's really important. If you think about it, like, people have started using using, and one of the reasons why people were upset that TikTok was going away, besides the fact that they couldn't doom scroll at 2 a.m., was they were using it as a search engine. They were using it as a way to learn. I became so much of a better cook using TikTok than ever before, because when I Google it, I don't want to know about summers at your grandma's house in Maine to get your cookie recipe. Just tell me what the ingredients are. They're like, I remember it was a warm summer day. I'm like, oh my God, please. It's like just this wall of text. I'm like, what are the ingredients? And, TikTok's like, here's how to make oatmeal raisin cookies, period. Here are the ingredients. Here's what you do. It's a 1-minute video. And I have learned so much more that way. And I'm sure that people listening have learned other things in a similar fashion. So you want to treat your website content in that way as well.
Ask my wife what makes me lose it in the kitchen. And there are two things. One is when the kids have their crap all over my counter space and I can't actually cook. But the other is when I'm trying to make a recipe off Pinterest. Nothing will make me lose my mind faster than trying to make a freaking thing off Pinterest where there's 75,000 ads, 622 pop-ups, and I've got to scroll for 4 days to get to the recipe, which is right at the very bottom. And I'm like, oh.
Exactly. So I'm like,
now, if I wasn't such an old fart and I would just use TikTok.
I'll tell you what, the recipes are 10 out of 10. That was like the big, it's so funny as they were like, doing the ban that happened for 5 minutes and everyone was crying on TikTok. I was just out there in my saved folder, just downloading every recipe. Like, please don't let me lose how to make bang bang shrimp. Like, I just want to know the recipe and I don't want to go back to reading blogs. And if you think about how we are, like when you're building your website, you just need to think about how you are on a daily basis. How do you search? How do you learn? How do you look for answers? And then you try to duplicate that on your website for people out in the world because they're just people like you. And also you want to think about the fact that Gen Z, you want to think about Gen Z, I think, a lot when you're building your website and things like that, because my son is right on the edge of Gen Z and millennial. He's going to be 28 in February, which I still am having a hard time wrapping my brain around, but he's almost 30. Like Gen Z they're not teenagers anymore. They're in their late 20s, they're in the workforce, they're working their way up, they're the content managers on social media, and they also don't have the biggest attention spans. They want the answers now. They were raised in a digital first, I want it now world, and so we want to build for them too. I think that's really important to think about. Like when you think about yourself as a user and then you try to build your site in that way, even the content that you write, the emails that you send, like think about what you would want. Because I feel like a lot of times what everyone's really thinking about is, I want a job, I want to get hired, I want this, but you're not thinking about it from the person's perspective. The empathy on the other end.
That brings up a really good point. I read a book not too long ago that was called The Gen Z Economy, and it was all about how Gen Z is going to incorporate into the world and into the workforce and into the economy, and how that's going to change everything completely. And one of the things that the book continued to reiterate was that this is a generation that they don't even use Google. It's TikTok and YouTube.
And they don't like email.
Yeah. If I want to know how to do something, I go to TikTok, I go to YouTube, and I watch the video on TikTok and I watch the video on YouTube. So that brings up an interesting point from an SEO standpoint then. If you're writing for your website and you're putting up these blog posts and you're building out these genre pages and whatever, and that's fine. That's appeasing the Google gods, as it were. If you are also, because you're doing the work and the research anyway, so if you were taking that content that you've written and turning those into short form videos that you're posting on TikTok or
I'm
on
yelling into the
YouTube,
microphone.
and then they backlink to your website. That's what we should be doing. That's how we need to be thinking about it, right? So it's repurposing. This is one of the biggest things that I've had to learn, because I'm a guy who's created just an ungodly amount of content.
Yes, you have.
It's been created for one purpose and used one time. And this is where ChatGPT has become like my right hand, is I can go to ChatGPT and I can take Free Advice Friday, 1 hour live stream, just me sitting answering voiceover questions. It happened once, it happened live, and it just continues to live on YouTube. But I can say, how can I repurpose this? And then every one of those questions that I answered could become a post for social media, it could potentially become a blog, it could potentially become a video unto itself or whatever. And so it's learning how to repurpose this content.
That's so important. And short form content is going to be king. Obviously, again, we've seen with TikTok just the massive growth, 170 million Americans on the site. Of course, YouTube Shorts wants to try to capture that. Instagram Reels, Meta's like circling the waters. They want it too. And the thing about YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels that's different than TikTok is immediate. When something happens in the world, it's like it is on TikTok right away. When I go on YouTube Shorts, it's like this weird hodgepodge. Like, what is this? It's like this was uploaded yesterday. This one was 6 months ago. Like, they're going to need to get their algorithm way more in order. However, YouTube is very much prioritizing short form content. I just read an article the other day of there's people who stream video games. They stream on Twitch and they stream on YouTube, and some people have exclusivity with one platform and some can stream on both. But a very, very popular streamer just said that she was going back to Twitch because YouTube told her in no uncertain terms that they are focused on shorts this year, and she is a long form content streamer, and so she feels like she would have better revenue chances on Twitch. So definitely short form content is the way to go if you're a person that is comfortable in front of a camera. I'm trying to get better about it because I also have an ungodly amount of content. I'm like, I bought a camera, I have like a whole studio setup out here that I just never use, and so maybe my goal this year is to get more comfortable with that. But that is a very good way to build.
After the interview
we need to
ends,
talk about that.
We're gonna have a little chat.
We need to.
Gina. This is how you show your sister how much you appreciate all of that writing that she's done for you that people aren't reading because it's just on the page. You're gonna take the writing and you're gonna use it as the scripts for the video content.
I could make so many. I had so many ideas, but I don't know. Like, the internet's a scary place. Listen, I got into voiceover so I could hide in this box all day and nobody would look at me. That's why.
Here's another question then. If we're because obviously there's massive value in taking this content that we're writing and turning it into short form video content. Right. So we're repurposing it that way. If you create video content from it, do you put the videos back on your website so that you're building more pages on your website?
Yeah, you can have a video. I mean, I have a videos page on my site that's just, videos of projects I've done, but you can have a running feed, a videos page like that. I have one that's like all podcast videos I've done. So that could be really helpful. But one of the biggest benefits of doing video content is, utilizing it on social media, posting it across multiple platforms, and then linking back to your site, because Google also wants to see, as much as they'd love to dominate all of search, they do want to see that people are coming to you from other ways, whether that's clicking on a link in an email that you send, or coming from a social media platform, or a referral from another site in some way, like Reddit. Those things are really important. So there is a lot of value in building that video content. You can put it right back on your page too, if you'd like.
It's interesting in 2020, when everybody else was making sourdough bread, I created a video series. I went back through emails and I found, like, I don't even remember, like 15 or 20 different questions the common questions that clients would ask me, right? Those same ones that come up over and over and over again. And so I don't make sourdough bread. So I went and made videos. And so I answered all of these questions that would commonly be asked, and each one of the questions became a video. And that actually worked. And so naturally, I've never done it again.
Of course. Why would we? It worked so well.
But like, you've got me thinking now that the way that when we're writing all of this stuff for our websites, why aren't we turning around? Because you said with social media, one of the hardest parts is figuring out what do we post, right? Coming up with content, coming up with ideas, and voice actors think that they need to give voiceover tips to, have authority or whatever, which is such a bad idea.
It drives me crazy. I'm like, please stop.
Yeah. So that's where that's potentially where you get your content from, is repurposing what you're writing for SEO and turning it into short form.
Absolutely. Let's even give an example. Like I said, the best blog that I wrote, the best performing blog, I don't know if it's the best blog, but the best performing blog are the top colleges for studying voiceover. If I turn that into a video series and I say, today we're talking about the number 5 college for studying voiceover, Pace University. Pace students, Pace University commenting on it, that's big. Then you email Pace University and say, hey, I wrote about you in my blog and I made a video about it talking about studying voiceover. If Pace University, I'm just like, I don't know if anyone could see me right now. If Pace University will link to your website, a .edu link back to you, massively powerful in Google. So, there's
why haven't you created these videos yet?
I don't know, because I don't want anyone looking at me. Don't look at me. Listen,
this is where accountability starts, Gina.
We're doing our
how many universities are written in that?
I think 5 or 6, and now that's 5 or 6 videos.
Okay, so that's 5 or 6 videos. Okay,
Yeah.
so let me look at my schedule. When's this episode drop? I think this episode drops in like 2 weeks from when we're recording right now. So
No.
I'm literally making a note right now. I'm gonna write a
Follow up
note.
in 2 weeks. Did you
Follow
make
up
No.
by mid-February. There better be at least a couple of these videos online.
I know. I keep thinking about it. You know, I mentioned
I don't want you to think about it.
I know. Do the thing. Do the thing. Unless we're talking about me, then then maybe not. No, I really do need to. And actually, I was saying earlier about my son. You know, who I said his birthday's next month, but he works on. He's a marketing manager, a digital marketing manager.
Oh, so
and
you have even more excuses for not doing it.
He's
then,
so good at growing YouTube channels, Instagram, TikTok, things like that. He's become he and a friend of his especially have become very successsul pushing a YouTube channel to almost 1 million followers, and so I have a built-in.
Can we just recap this for a second? I have a sister who has a master's degree in writing.
Both of my parents are English teachers. My dad's a writer.
I have a son who's a marketing expert who's incredibly awesome at growing YouTube channels.
Yeah, he's great.
I am a successful voice actor who knows how to do SEO, but at no point did it occur to me to take those 3 components and put them together because I already have the entire team that I need.
Yeah. They're right there, and we all share a last name. Listen, we've all worked together my whole adult life too. So if the gang all comes back together, they'll be thrilled. My sister already always tells me every day that she loves working.
This content, Gina, like literally, you have no choice now.
I've backed myself into a corner. I should have known when talking to you that this was going to result in me being in the hot seat at one point.
This is going out to the world, and there is literally no excuse. You are going to lead by example, because then we'll do a follow-up where we get to talk about how you did all this stuff, and here are the ultimate results that came from it. And now I'm doing voiceover for Pace University's e-learning classes and whatever it is.
I know. Wait, this actually is a good idea. And you know what the thing is when you're making short form content is you can film a bunch at once, and then you can, space them out. So you could even wear that, like you could change your clothes if you want to, but you could basically just wear the same outfit and just upload them. So fine. You got me.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that follow-up where we get to find out what ultimately happened. Great. And we'll be looking for those videos coming very soon.
Oh boy, look out.
All right, Gina, this has been really good because I think it's a really important thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But I think that we do get overwhelmed and intimidated by all the nuts and bolts of it. But it's really, at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be that complicated. It can literally be as simple as writing some blog posts, which anybody is capable of doing if you just sit down and take the time to do it. And with the tools that are out there now, the Claudes and the ChatGPTs and whatever, like there's really no excuse for not taking advantage of this stuff.
And you don't need to be an expert. You can just write about things that you know that provide value to people.
One final question, because this might be the thing that pushes people over. I'm curious because you obviously do this a lot. SEO is a big part of your strategy. Do you know approximately what percentage of your work is walk-in from your website?
Oh wait, I'm glad you asked. Hold on. So let me pull that up because I actually do track that.
I have a spreadsheet.
Hello, where's my reports? Direct in my inbox, 22% of my work last year came directly into my inbox.
That's significant.
Yeah.
So if ever there was an argument to be made for why you need to create some more videos so that you can drive up that number.
100. No, this is back on me again.
Yes.
Listen, what I was going to say is that no one should have the power to dismantle your business. So if you're building your Google wealth over time, no one, not a pay to play, not an agent, not a manager, not a production company, not an internal roster, nobody can dismantle your business because you've built that credibility yourself. And yes, it does bode, confidence maybe for me making, I will make some videos and report back. We'll see how they do.
I know you're going to be very busy with
the family.
This new content creation project that you've got going on. But in the meantime, if somebody wants a little bit of help with this, if somebody has questions, I know you do some coaching and you teach some classes and things of that nature. So tell us how we can get in touch with you and get a little bit more deeper into the wisdom that you have on this, or if people want to talk about their specific situation, specific keywords, whatever.
Yeah. You can reach out to me through my website, which is ginascarpa.com, or the email is coaching@ginascarpa.com. And typically what we do is, look at the things that you're hoping to rank for, come up with some keyword ideas, kind of walk you through what a template for your page could look like, and help you feel like, like you're saying, it's not so overwhelming. You understand what to do. I'm very big. I call myself like the one and done coach. I'm like, if we meet twice, amazing. But pretty much I'm just here to help you get going and then send you on your way.
Right on. All right. Well, Gina, thank you so much. I will put the link to website in the show notes so that anybody can look it up.
Awesome.
And we'll be looking forward to the follow-up when those videos are done.
Damn it.
When that first booking from Pace University comes.
All right. Well, tell Jarvis I said hello.
I will. Thank you, Gina. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's always fun talking to you.